Sam from the Jungle Giants, thank you so much for joining me today, ever so remotely, but it's so exciting to have you on the green room with me today.
Good to be here. The green room. I like it. I've spent many an hour in the green room.
Yes,
Not this
well,
particular one, but it's good to be here.
welcome. This one may be a little bit different to what you're used to, but I hope it will be equally inviting as what you may have had in the past. I've got less beer though than most green rooms do, so
That's fine. That's
I'll have
fine.
to fix that next time. But it's exciting to have you here. And I know the world has gone a little bit topsy-turvy again recently for a few of us, especially where I am right now, and not so much for you at the moment in Melbourne, but a little bit of excitement that is very much on the brink is the incredible release of Love Signs, your fourth Jungle Giant studio album. How does it feel to be at this point after such a bizarre year and a bit in the wake of the lead up to this unveiling?
You know what? It feels absolutely amazing. I mean, to me, at this point, like, because I'm pretty much finished this record during Melbourne's like 100-day lockdown, and I was just deep in the weirdest time of my life. But I feel like right now I feel so the music now feels separated from any kind of COVID story, because I feel like what it is it's something that I'm extremely proud of, and it has taken years to get to this point. And I love it so much because I feel like making this album actually got me through some potential really hard times, and the times were hard, but I feel like this album really kind of like supported me, and it's like this album's my friend. But so I'm so excited to finally get it out because I'm so proud of it. I think I play this so much to my friends at parties and stuff. It's driving them nuts. I think now it's time for the public to have it, you know?
It's our turn now.
Yeah.
But that's a really nice way to put it. And I mean, as much as it's obviously come about during a time that's been really uncertain, like the really incredible thing is that you guys have had quite the journey. I mean, looking back to the start of 2020, you guys were actually on tour overseas at the start of the year when all of this was kind of kicking off. Like, how does it feel over a year later to be at this point? Like, does it just feel like that was a complete different lifetime ago, considering you were traipsing the world?
Totally going around the world. We were in Japan when we heard the news, and then we just kind of like ran back home. But yeah, I feel like I mean I'm a positive person, and I'm kind of like, I'm not really trying to compare then and now. I miss international touring so much. But I've kind of just changed my attitude now to just being extremely thankful for what I can have. And I feel extremely lucky in Australia to actually be able to play shows. I can't wait for us to get up these vaccines fucking sorted so we can actually, not lose the boat, not lose the race with everyone else. But yeah, I mean, we've had relatively and absolutely rocking fucking COVID compared to other places around the world. And yeah, I can't wait to go back overseas. But I feel like I've used this time to make the record. I had extra time to finish the record, which I really needed. And we've luckily been playing heaps of shows, weirdly. Like, we've been all over the place, even this year and towards the end of last year. Lots of like one-off festivals, but they've been sick. Like, I was in Darwin a couple of weeks ago. I played a really nice show. They have like really sick capacities there. It was like 16,000 people. And the day before, I went helicopter barramundi fishing with Illy, which was like,
oh my God.
I didn't even know you could do that. But a friend of us like hooked up a helicopter. It had no doors. It was just this helicopter. You have your fishing rod, and then you kind of just like the helicopter pilot would just look around and point where you could see fish. And then we'd land on this little beach, just like wild animals riding a mechanic Brumby. And then we jump out and we grab a beer and then just fish. It was like the best time ever. And I feel like I find maybe I'm seeing more of Australia than I ever had before, because I'm a domestic guy now.
Yeah.
But we all are. And it's good to get around Australia because it actually rules.
Yeah, there's so many places I haven't seen. I can't say, like, it feels like helicopter fishing with Illy sounds like some awesome new TV show I instantly want to watch.
Yeah. That's
Cross
like
with the
that's
Jungle
the title of
Giants.
the show.
Yeah,
Helicopter fishing with Illy and the Jungle Giants.
yeah, 10 out of 10 will watch that show. Can't wait for you to pitch it. But I guess that has been the thing. Like, it's been a way, it's not, I don't want to use the word forced, but it's almost allowed us to kind of cast our gaze inwards a little bit more than we ever would have been able to. And like, even in, various chats, I've had people are discovering their local, even not town, like their actual just around the corner. Like, I found a park that is like 200 meters away from me. I never knew existed. And yeah, it's wild. But
and there is like sometimes I go like overseas and do like a long tour, and I get home and there'd always be this readjustment of like, oh, I'm back in Australia. And there's these little things that they kind of reminded that you're back in Australia. And I've always loved that moment. I'm like, oh, I'm back home. And like in Melbourne, there's all these little things. And I feel like during this time, I've discovered all these little pubs and stuff around me. And I found this pub in Melbourne called the Railway Hotel. And to me, it's like the most Australian pub I've ever seen, because it's like they haven't changed the decor since about 1982. And it's this beautiful old pub. It's just like a time warp. It's got fireplaces and it's so nice. And I keep thinking that that's like the most Australia place that I've ever seen. And I just found it during these couple of months. And while I've just been chilling in Melbourne. And now I feel like every time from now, when I go overseas and I come back to Australia, I'll feel like I'm really back in Australia when I'm sitting at that pub with a beer.
Yeah, 100%. Well, that's going on my must visit when I am allowed out, but it's a really nice thing to come out of it. And another thing too, with the album Come to Life, I know you guys have plans to tour it, and I'm crossing all my fingers and very, very long toes that it will come about. But coming back to the album for a second, I did read that you kind of sequestered yourself into a studio, locked yourself away, embraced a bit of the chaos that COVID kind of made you do. And you've emerged with something truly spectacular. Like, the album is absolutely stunning, but can you take me through a bit of your creative journey and the lead up? Like, how much of it did you kind of have in your head or somewhere tangible prior to locking yourself away and creating this?
Well, I mean, I had a fair bit of it done actually before COVID hit. Because Heavy Hearted had come out. Heavy Hearted's just about over 2 years old now. And technically that's like a long lead single. So I've been making the album and kind of releasing it at the same time, which is kind of all unorthodox. Some people do that, but for me, it was a new challenge because it'd been a while since our last record, and I was kind of making songs in these batches. My one hope was that each song that I was releasing would still fit the plan by the time I finished the record. And thankfully it did. And I was kind of playing with a new drum sound when I first released it, Heavy Hearted, and that's still maintained to the end of the record. But so I was kind of making it in these little batches between tours. When we were in the States, early 2020, we were in a bus. Like, it was a sick bus. We had bunks in there, and at the very back we had it was like a little chill room with like leather couches and an Xbox, and there was this table there next to this beautiful massive window that you could open. And we were like driving through like the mountains just past Chicago, and I had this window open, and I was just making the record in the back of this bus. And it was like, that was a really fucking cool way to write music, like moving. It's usually in a studio, like not moving, but I like that. So it's like it was written essentially all around the world, mostly in Melbourne at my little studio. But yeah, by the time I like kind of went into lockdown and finished it off, there was a couple of songs that I finished off the writing, but a big part of it was the production. So I kind of just call it pre-production. So I would just kind of make sure all the shitty recorded guitars sounded good, and I had more time to do it, which is good because I was rushed pre-COVID. I was really rushed, and there was tours coming up and travel, and the time was getting less and less and less that I could actually focus on the music. So I really took that as a blessing that I had more time to just focus on what is most important, and that's the music.
And it's interesting, like you get a vibe that there is that differing thing. I mean, you've got stuff, obviously you got your bops and you got your upbeat stuff, but there is that noticeable journey. So whether or not you've intended to imprint this rushing past of a bus or sitting in a studio somewhere, like it does really come across. So that's quite, yeah. And I'm always the person, I listen to music while I'm driving, imagining I'm in some, amazingly bad movie. So yeah. I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah. See, driving and listening to music is awesome. And I've discovered that writing music while driving is awesome. That sounds dangerous, but if someone else is driving you, maybe that could be a new thing. Is like, I could just ask one of my friends to just drive me around the city while I'm in the back seat, just making beats. That could be, a mobile studio. Maybe that's a thing. I'll get an RV.
God. Yes, this needs to be an immediate business as well. So TV show and business, tick.
Yeah, I'll get Illy to drive the studio while I'm.
Oh, stop it! That's too perfect. Oh, this is great. So we'll coin these businesses after this.
We'll hit up the producers. It's all cool.
Brilliant. And I guess from that perspective too, by the sounds of it, stuff has been in the works and there's been a lot going on while you've been conjuring this album. There's been a bit of time now between your previous album. Did you ever have that whole worry about internal or external expectations, given how successful the band has been in the past? Like, does that kind of stuff play on you at any point at this stage in your career? I mean, you've done it for a long time now, but is that ever something gurgling away behind it all?
Well, I mean, totally. I think it would definitely affect me. I think you're always aware of your career and you're always aware of, maintaining and also giving, like, you need to be releasing music as an artist. I think like there is definitely people need to be hearing you. You need to be in the sphere. But that used to stress me out more than it does now. When I was younger, it used to stress me out a little and I had to learn how to deal with it, how to cope with it, because that's not something that you usually, when you first start a band, you don't think about those external pressures, but then you learn to cope with them as your career keeps going. And I have a really good relationship with the stress of music now, I find now, at least I think now, because what I do is I focus on the music when I have time to focus on the music, and then I focus on release strategies and marketing, social media, all that stuff is part of the job. And by giving it time, like almost allotting time for it, it doesn't swamp me. It doesn't get over my head. It's kind of one of those things. And so, yeah, I mean, like I'm conscious as an artist that I want to give the time I spend making my music, I put in time sharing it as well, because I want as many people as I can to hear it. But yeah, so the pressure is always there, but the stress isn't there as much now because I've just learned how to deal with it a bit more and kind of like learn to cope with it and learn to understand it. And it's just like another part of the job. That's all it is.
I think that's the healthiest way to look at it, because I think, as you said, it is something that it goes hand in hand with it. And it's, it's not something to be dreaded. And it is something that time does also help. I mean, it's like with any job when you first start and you've got all these things.
Yeah, it's all stressy. Yeah.
It's fascinating. And I like that you say that. And I think it gives everyone hope that we all kind of suffer from that. But there is, the more you do it, the easier it gets. So great lesson.
Yeah. And the more you look at it as if it is an issue, you got to look at it as a problem that you can address, other than making it music stressful. It's like, no, there's parts of music that are stressful. You know what I mean? So once you address all those little problems and you can learn to deal with them and then find coping methods. And, I think, any problem can be kind of straightened out if you just give it time and attention.
Yeah. And interestingly, on that note, I know with Quiet Ferocity, you took over doing a lot of the production stuff, and I believe you solely produced and wrote this time around as well. Was that something you just loved so much from the previous experience that it just automatically carried over into this? Like, is that another facet that you just find yourself exploring more and more?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been writing, like the Jungles music. I write the music, but I didn't always produce. And I would find myself getting a little frustrated when I was younger, having other producers, but that was before I knew how to produce. I would just have an opinion and I'd be like, the snare drum's wrong. And then, this producer that we've paid is like, no, man, it's right. And then that was when I realized, oh my God, if I have an opinion on how the snare drum has to sound, I have to learn the word, or I need to learn to describe what I'm after. And then the more time I spent learning how to produce, I was like, oh my God, this is like, suddenly now it's like I've the subtitles, I've got the right language. Finally, I can get people to understand what I'm after if I do it myself. So I also like moving at my own pace, and I like having that control so I can write a song, make it sound exactly how I want it to sound as one, at the same time. That's important to me. I feel like I write and produce at the same time. So that was a natural progression after Quiet Ferocity. That felt amazing for me to be able to make a record, and be able to take the brunt of that stress that control, but be really proud and happy with the results, and then see the reaction that we got, but from fans, which was awesome. So this time around, I wanted to give myself more like of a challenge, but I also naturally wanted to do this because I feel like I've just got ideas for ways that I want to produce all the time. And so I just started making the record. That's what I was doing. I was just making demos. And then my manager, when I first wrote Heavy Hearted, I sent it around to the band and they listened to it. And my manager was like, we have to put this out. We have to put this out. And I was like, well, like, okay, like, but you know, maybe I'll keep finishing the record off. He was like, this would be awesome if we put it out now. And he was like, it sounds perfect. Like, are you happy with it? And I was like, yeah. And like, I hadn't intended that was going to be the final product. But so I was like, yeah, actually, you know what? I'm going to re-record this and the tambourine, and then I'll just send it. And then I went up to Brisbane and I mixed with a guy called Konstantin Kirsting. He's one of my best friends, an amazing guy, amazing engineer. And we just pounded out the song and then put it out. And it was one of our biggest tracks ever. And watching that come back like that, I feel like people were very accepting of the new sound. People were more than accepting. They were kind of like, yeah, this is awesome. And I was kind of surprised that no one was like, wow, this is a dance song. But yeah, like people just seem to really, really love it and really, really like kind of believe in it. So that gave me a confidence boost that I was like, I'm onto something here. I'm going to keep producing the way that I feel is right. And then, yeah. So, I want people to hear that I'm loving what I'm doing. I feel like you can hear that when an artist is having fun and believing in themselves.
It definitely translates over. And I think that's what I find so interesting with you guys. I mean, in the past, you've kind of had these different labels thrown at you, like, you know, indie rock royalty and all of these stuff that I love seeing this. And I love seeing the passion that you come out of it. And I mean, it's kind of exciting that you've evolved from teenagers in high school in a band to the point you are now, and to be so confident in what you're doing, but also to be willing to evolve. Because I think I hate labels. Like, I am in the wrong industry because I hate putting a genre label on anything. So yeah, like, what can you put your finger on then for the Jungle Giant success, in that you've been able to fluctuate and your fans have followed you, like absolutely adoring it the whole way? Do you think there's some secret recipe here?
I do think that a big part of it, or at least like something that's really important to me and intrinsic with me, is positivity. Like for me, I love making music and I love spending time making music, and I take it really seriously because I feel like I always need, there's so much I don't know and I want to keep learning, and I maintain that energy into music. I love making music. So I put everything I have into getting better at that all the time. And I feel like a byproduct of that is progressing as an artist. And I've found that the more I tried and the more I just kind of like put my heart into making music, the more people would understand that they would enjoy that. They would feel that kind of love. They would feel that kind of like devotion. So yeah, I honestly feel like positivity is a massive part of it.
Yeah. And I think there's something to be said for music that has authenticity, but is still so enjoyable and so relatable at the same time. Like, it's so rare that you do have that, like, nothing against, you know, a vapid pop song, but that is definitely not something a Jungle Giants song would ever be described as. And yeah, it's exciting to see you guys have so much fun, but be just totally in control. And yeah, I mean, I'm a fan, it's no secret, but obviously you have many others outside of me as well. So yeah, it's inspiring. I mean, to come out of high school as well. I was in high school wanting to start a band, and we all realized Queens of the Stone Age were better than us, or we tried to do a good Charlotte Harmony. So
you shouldn't worry about that stuff. That's the thing. That's the positivity trick. You can just be like, well, I'll keep going. I'll keep trying, you know?
Well, I might have to go back in time. I have to tell 16-year-old Tiana.
You got a pep talk. I'll come with you.
Okay, what's my trouble? Oh God. Oh, this could be bad for all of us. But
we'll get Illy to host it. It'll be
time traveling as well. Yes, that's the trifecta. I knew we'd get there. Time traveling pep talk. But it's exciting too. Like, not only have you guys had such a long career, but you also recently, I spied on Twitter, you've just had your 10-year anniversary for your first ever EP, the self-titled amazing EP. Made me a bit scared that it has been 10 years, because it feels like not that long for me. So but I noticed that you put out a call out asking fans to tell you their favorite song from the EP. So I was wondering if I could put that to you. Do you have a favorite from the very first moment?
Yeah, for sure. I think the first, I mean, I kind of like I forgot about this song kind of. It's been that long since that first EP, but I remember writing that's Like a Weight. It's a song called Like a Weight, and it's like a really soft, really heartfelt track that a friend of mine recently was like, dude, you have to listen to this song because it's good. He was like, I know you were a kid, but I think he was with someone and he put on the EP, the first EP, just to like for like shits and giggles. And he really liked it. And he kind of talked to me about it. He was like, man, I really like this. Like, what the hell? Like, I didn't know Jungle Giants did songs like this, which is a funny thing because like there's been such a progression. But I re-listened to it the other day and I fucking loved it. And it's like, because I was really into Bon Iver at the time. And it's kind of like a really kind of Bon Iver-y chordal thing. And it's super sad. And I wrote it about a breakup I had with a girlfriend at the time. And it's just like super sad. And yeah, that'll be my favorite for sure. It's called Like a Weight.
Well, I had to say, at the time, I was actually moving from Brisbane to Sydney. So it has a real link to Brisbane for me inadvertently, not just because, even though you were in Melbourne, a Brisbane band, but I had Mr. Polite was my jam. But I kept coming back to it. And it always reminds me that I moved to Sydney for a short term and I've now been here for 10 years. The entire time your EP's been out, I've been in Sydney. So
that's fine. Sydney rules.
Yeah.
Sydney's awesome.
But I think there's so much light and shade on it. It's amazing.
Thank you. That's my second favorite for sure. Mr. Polite, changed our lives. That song was like the single that kind of like garnered up a lot of interest for us. You know what I mean? So I love that song and I love what that song did for us. And, that'll be my very close second favorite on the EP.
Excellent. That's good. We don't have to share that one then. I can have that as my number one. Now, it would be remiss of me. Obviously, Jungle Giants, your music is beautiful. There's so much going on with it, but everyone raves about your live show. Like you cannot read an article, you cannot see a review without everyone saying you have to see these guys live. So given there's been a little bit of time away from it, I know you've had a few little things yourself that you've been performing lately, but with the upcoming tour to celebrate the new album, is there anything new or secret or special you can reveal about what we can expect from a Jungle Giants show in the second half of 2021?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's one thing like I feel extra lucky to say this, but we actually have been performing at a lot of festivals during COVID, which is weird to say, but yeah, we're definitely trained up. And one thing that we've wanted to do, we're very appreciative of what we can have now. I think that's like been an important thing. So one thing that we've decided for this album tour is to just reinvest so much we're spending so much on this show. But what we're doing is we're trying to like, we feel like this music feels leveled up for the show. It's much more high intensity. There's a lot of dance elements now, which kind of translate really well live. And so we've kind of built this production that is bigger than anything we've ever done before. It's definitely like it's definitely going to be more dance show, but that's one thing I love. It's going to be kind of like a massive production. And I'm pretty I think to me, it feels kind of leveled up from anything we've done before. And this new artwork that we have has all these crazy things we can do with it. So I can't reveal too much, but we're gonna fuck with some props this time.
Ooh, this fascinates and excites me. I love a prop. So this is good news.
We'll have some props.
Yay. And comparing that back to, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that your first gig was at the Powerhouse in Brisbane. The very
Yes,
first Jungle Giants.
It was, yeah.
To prove how much cooler you are. I have also performed at the Powerhouse in Brisbane, but it was with Forced Compulsory University Choir. And I think my mother was in attendance and no one else that I knew. So you're a little bit cooler than me. But comparing that, can you take me back to that moment when you walked on stage with the Jungle Giants for the first time? Did you guys know you had something special then and there? Did you have that immediate connection with the crowd and just realize this was something that was definitely going to be of pursuit down the track?
I mean, it's kind of funny. When I look back at the shows, we were nervous about playing in front of a crowd, but I do think that the main thing we were thinking was how fun it was between us. I don't think we were planning for anything. Like, I mean, I was putting a lot of time. It's kind of funny when I say that, but what I was doing at the time was I had our first EP and I printed it to CDs, and then I put like a little like letter on it trying to explain who I was and who the band was. And I literally put it under the door of all the venues in Brisbane. So I was hustling as fuck. But when we were playing, we were just like super cute. We were just like really enjoying it. And I remember our manager, when we first like met him, he was booking an artist, and it was going to be billed as just Sam Hales as an acoustic act, because that's what I was originally. And then at the time I was like, you know what? No, I've got this new band going. It's called Jungle Giants. I'm going to bring the band, but I didn't tell him. I thought I did. So he thought he was walking in to see an acoustic act, but then he said he saw this band just thrashing around on stage. And when he tells me a story, I always feel like really nice. I think it's really cute because we were just a bunch of kids just literally banging around. Like, do you know what I mean? And it was so fun for us. And to this day, it's just as fun. And we're all super close. We're a really close bunch of friends. Like we've been friends since we were kids at school. And I feel like over the years, we've just got closer and closer and closer. And yeah, I love those guys. Shout out to the Jungle Giants.
Oh, shout out indeed. Like, yeah, what a bunch of sweethearts.
Yeah.
That warms my heart. I love that so much. And I love that it still carries over after all this time. But one little thing I wanted to check with you before we start to bring this to a close, going back to the album for a moment for Love Signs. I read an amazing article about a little flourish you had to your falsetto and the instigating factor behind that. Is the story correct that your girlfriend is responsible for your falsetto leveling up? Times?
Yeah. Well, actually, do you know what she did? So, okay. So what my girlfriend was doing was she was spanking my bum is that what you heard?
So yeah, I'd heard that was pretty much at just the perfect moment. So is this true?
It is true that she gave me a spank, but it wasn't for my falsetto. It was because I was doing some takes in my studio and I couldn't get the energy right. I couldn't get the vibe right. So I called her almost in desperation. I was like, babe, like I'm just like my deadline was that afternoon to finish off my vocals, and I just wasn't vibing it, and I just needed something. And so I called her and she came to the studio with champagne and like there was a cowboy hat. I'm not sure if she brought it or it was at the studio. And I just got her to press the space bar while I was like, at the microphone. And the more and more takes I was doing, she was like giving me like champagne. And then at one point she was like, come on, you got this. And she just gave me a little spank. And it definitely it fired me up. So, I mean, I would, advise anyone who can't get the vibe in the studio, just get a cowboy hat, someone to spank you, and a little bit of champagne. And honestly, the vibe will be right.
Well, the secret recipe, I'm taking notes rapidly just in case I do go back in time and start my band. But what an amazing thing. Also, just your new best friend, because she sounds like someone I would want to hang out with, but we can talk about that after.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, to finish off today, considering I have dragged you into my green room with your upcoming tour as well, what is one essential item you will be requiring backstage when you christen Love Signs in your upcoming tour later this year?
I reckon, maybe like a love heart shaped pinata filled with those little tequila bottles that you can get at hotels. Yeah. I reckon it'd be that. A love heart shaped pinata filled with little mini bar tequila bottles. That seems fitting. Seems good.
It seems beautiful. It's Love Signs just leveled up to the next Jungle Giants level.
Bit of Love Signs, bit of Jungle Giants mixed
together at last. Well, I think that's going to be a fun time for all, and I'm so excited for all our little side hustles we've actually accidentally started today as well. Yeah, but more importantly, huge congratulations on Love Signs. It's absolutely gorgeous, and thank you so much for joining me in the green room as well.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Yay! Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Green Room with Tiana Speter is a podcast from the Handshake Agency Network, produced by Tiana Spita and Andrew Mast, with Pharrell D'Souza and Henry Gibson providing research. Recorded and engineered by Zig Parker, executive producer Craig Treweek.